So today we're going to build a computer. I'm going to put all this information in Excel. And this is going to be a virtual exercise because in my class we've already actually built one. That is, we had all the components and we put them together. We plugged them in to the right spots. And then I kind of demonstrated how the power goes through the motherboard and where it goes depending on what's being done to the computer or what's being done on the computer and with what types of devices. That demonstration kind of went into a few different directions. But the point is, I think the whole process was not quite as exciting as many of my students may have dreamed it would be. Maybe that's because we didn't actually get to turn it on, but what would happen if we turned it on? You'd just see a login screen? We pretty much covered everything, so I thought I'd create this lesson so you'll get practice hunting down information. You'll better understand the components that make up a computer. You'll better understand the specs or the numbers that you would read and try to analyze when buying a computer or buying the parts to a computer that you're building yourself. And by doing all of this on Excel, you'll have a nice little thing to reference. Not to mention students in my class get credit for learning Excel. It's just one of the many applications we have to work with in this course. So here we go. What you want to do is go to your toolbar here and click that little circle. Some of you might see the toolbar down here, so in that case the circle, it says type to search, so we're going to just type in Excel. It'll pop up right away and I can hit enter. I'm going to create a new blank worksheet, so let's make that really big. Pause if I ever go too fast here. We're going to click this triangle so I can select the whole sheet because for the sake of this lesson I'll go ahead and make the font really big at 30. You can make it whatever you're comfortable with, and of course you could change the font to whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to go with Times New Roman because I like the 90s and vaporwave art. But let me go ahead and start spreading some of these columns out. That was kind of cool. They all spread out at the same time since I had this little thing right here clicked still. Okay, so what do we name these? Well, let's make a generic just 1, 2, 3 right here. So type in 1, 2. If I highlight these, I can drag it down to however many I need. Oh, and let's actually highlight that and move it down 1. So that this will be a blank spot. Right here I'm going to put part, as in the name of the part. Okay, there we go. Over here will be, let's say, a specification. That's the number that relates to the part that we're looking at. And then over here, of course, we have to go with price since that's such a big deal. And I made it a little cool, like. And then maybe right here, I'll just write notes or miscellaneous, so I can write any additional information I want there. And of course that means that would be bigger. Okay, so I have my setup ready. Just from memory, let me think back to what I've learned in this class. I know that a CPU is the thing, the processor that Professor H is always talking about. So I'll need one of those. And then RAM seems to be a favorite of his as well. A hard drive is from my list I looked at. I can go with case. I'll need a box to put all of that in. I wonder if I should put miscellaneous right here in case I'm forgetting something. Oh, maybe I want a high-end graphics card. At least I'll look into those. And then maybe I want a nice network interface card. That's kind of extra. I think if we get these first 4 actually, that's really all you need for a computer. Well, depending on what we find. So let's go ahead and go to the internet here. I'm going to use 2 sites just for fun actually. So going with Newegg and then I'll go with Amazon. So let's type in processor, just like randomly type that in. Get 2 so I could type it into here. Alright, so here are some of my options. If I jump over to Newegg, they don't even have, here we go. So here's the price and some just basic information. So at this point, I think it really doesn't matter what you pick. If this is like the first computer you've ever sort of built, you've ever planned to build, and if this never happens, that's totally okay because this is a great learning experience. So let me just pick one, and I'm a cheap person. I usually go cheapest, but let me try not to do that. That says Ryzen 5. Let me go with this AMD Ryzen 7. It's $40 more. $200 does not seem too bad. Okay, and another thing I should do is let me save the link, and in that Excel spreadsheet, I should go ahead and, how about I put that in the notes section actually. Okay, so I'll go over here, and I put the part name, but why don't I right click, let me insert another row, and so that way I can put, how about product name that I've chosen? So here I've gone with a Ryzen 7. Let's jump back so we could see some of the details. If I do that, this might look nicer. Let me make it smaller as well. Put these side by side like I like students to do in class. Okay, so in terms of some specs, it says AMD Ryzen 7 2700, 8-core, 3.2 gigahertz, 65 watts. It's a desktop processor. There's a bunch more information. There's a DDR4 support, which is good. That will be important when we go to buy our RAM. Okay, so that's enough. That's $199. If I scroll over, I can throw in $199. And if I click that box and I click the $sign, it'll turn it into dollars for me. Let me drag that down to the other columns, but for the other ones, I haven't found the price for those yet. Okay, specs though. So let me write some of that information I just read. I got 8 cores. And as a new person to this, the more exploration you do, the better. So maybe I don't know what Store MI or Sensei MI, probably machine learning technology is. So I could go look at that, use some Google Foo to try to better understand that. But since it's not a number, I'm going to skip it. And actually, if I scroll down, there's an entire tab called Specifications I can click. So let's look through these and see what we should gather. I think names like this is cool, and it kind of helps you differentiate the different versions of processors. 16 threads, though, that would be good to write down. 3.2 gigahertz is a good number to write down. So after that, we see that there are different cache sizes, and this is a number that's particularly interesting to me. Our L1 cache is closest to the ALU of the processor. That's the actual processing part of the processor. So these are memory types here. And if you're interested in what I just mentioned here, I started a new video series recently called What Every Programmer Should Know About Memory. So in this series, I've been really going into that topic. But that's beyond the scope of this video. As I look at manufacturing tech, that's a weird name for basically the size, so 12 nanometers. And as a desktop builder, I don't care about that. Memory types is good though, so DDR4, let's go ahead and keep track of that. And in terms of Newegg.com, we're going to go ahead and leave the rest of those numbers there. So okay, at this point, I should probably mention that I have forgotten about the motherboard. And geez, that might be where most people start with, so that's kind of funny. I could put miscellaneous here. And actually, before I go any further, I should probably let you know that there's a really nice website out there called PCPartPicker.com where you can make sure everything fits. It's compatible, that is. You could start with whichever ones you want here. So maybe if I choose motherboard, I can start picking them out. So let's go with a $200 one maybe. After clicking, I can look at the prices. Here's some reviews of this particular board, which is really interesting. I like this stuff. So if I go back, if I click the box, will that add it to my list? Let me click back again. It did not. So how do I get it to add a motherboard to my list there? There it is, says add. Okay, so we have our motherboard here. If I go to CPU, let me Control F to try to find that same Ryzen chip that we looked for, and it's not popping up, so interesting. Am I missing something, or are they only offering Intel? Wow, that's all they have, so what is up with that? Well, if anybody out there finds a AMD or Ryzen PC part picker like website for us, go ahead and let me know, please. Okay, so that was a little frustrating, but a great learning experience. So I'm going to just keep an eye on this BX8068, double check, BX8068 right there, cool. So I'm looking at the same product on both. In the spreadsheet, I went ahead and changed that to an i5 instead of a Ryzen chip. I changed the number of cores, adjusted the gigahertz, and I need to check DDR4. That's how I ended up back on Newegg. Because the tough thing is, like, though this PC part picker is nice, it provides us this compatibility check, there's a lot of missing specs, including threads, which, on second thought, let me go ahead and get rid of the threads. Probably beyond the scope of this video. If you're a first-time PC builder, you don't need to know, maybe, or you won't care so much at this stage. But for curiosity's sake, here on the Core i5, why is it called Core i5? 6 cores, but anyways, the i5 chip is how I hear people talk about it. This i5 chip has 6 threads. And if you really want to know more about what threads are, you can watch this video I made. I just found a Stack Overflow question and kind of broke it down. But when you're reading about CPUs, processors, and it talks about how many threads there are, this is what it's talking about. But here we go down here with the DDR4, that for sure it has, so my spreadsheet is safe right now. But the price, I need to check out that price difference. It's $229 on Newegg. Here on PC Part Picker, what am I seeing? $228. Oh, $218 from Amazon. Okay, we can do that. $218. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through that same process and then come back in this video and just show you the results. But for the students who are in my class, this is the spreadsheet I want you to create. Now, before I show you my whole build, the cool compatibility warning pops up here if you choose something that's not compatible, but you need to be careful. You see here I chose the motherboard next to try to fit with the processor, but the warning, if I click details, all it's really saying is I need a cooler, a CPU cooler. So it's compatible. I'm just getting a warning that the motherboard doesn't include that cooler. So I'm looking at some specs, just trying to choose some numbers because the teacher has made this assignment for me. So there you go, that'll be fine. There's a few more number things I can put in there, like the slot, or the socket, the slot where you put the processor in. That's a thing we need to make sure works for our CPU, but that's why this PC part picker is perfect, because it'll tell us if everything is compatible or not, right there in green. One thing you should be aware of as you finish picking all your parts here is when I looked for the network interface card, it was kind of hard to find. If you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see expansion card / networking, and you just click on this link. Notice I'm going to just skip all of these other things that I could buy just because this is a lesson on just building a desktop. Okay, so here it is. I'm all done with my research, and this was a really good learning process. I'm also getting some practice using Excel spreadsheets here. Notice I don't have a ton of notes. Notice I had to add a couple things down here because when I found my network interface card, I noticed there wasn't any specifications for wireless, so I had to go buy that too. That was an additional $32. Notice this huge price for a network interface card. I was just being silly, just for fun. $463 to get 2 ports that serve 10 gigabits per second is pretty crazy considering everything else. So you can maybe see a build like this would have some bottlenecks to it. But if you're in this class, this is the assignment. At the end, I'd like you to go ahead and put equals, and we're going to come up with the sum of all these numbers. So it looks like I have myself a $1,306 PC. I could jump back to PC Part Picker and see what price they're giving me. Yeah, so I just kind of rounded when I was transferring those numbers. But there you go. I am one step closer. It's all compatible. One step closer to actually building my own PC. This was a good learning experience. I'm learning the name of different companies that sell these different hardware components. So it's all about the learning experience here. And I didn't have to spend a dime actually buying any of these to learn about them. And for everyone else watching, if you enjoyed this video at all, you'll really like Bitwit. He made a video that has this cool octagon approach to buying a PC. So he's saying you can start at any of these points and then make sure they are compatible with adjacent points. But anyways, it's just a good video to watch if you're interested in this building PC stuff.